Welcome to Payback with Silas. Every day, a new story, lies, betrayal, payback. Let's begin.
You're just too expensive, Miles. That's what he said. Just like that. Like I was a piece of office equipment with a bad cost-benefit ratio. Like I hadn't built half the damn company from the ground up with my bare hands, sweat, and weekends. He didn't even look uncomfortable saying it. No tremor in the voice. No regret in the eyes. Just that smug little corporate smile that says, "Hey, nothing personal, just business." His name was Carter Voss. Harvard MBA. Hair that looked like it had its own PR team. Barely 35. He came in 2 years ago as our new CEO at Halberd Strategic after the board got antsy and decided the company needed fresh eyes. Fresh, apparently, meant young, loud, and full of bullshit acronyms. He sat across from me in a glass-walled conference room in downtown Chicago, the city skyline slicing through the windows behind him like silent judgment. He folded his hands, leaned in with that plastic empathy. "Look, you've been great. Truly. But the numbers just don't justify keeping someone at your salary anymore." My salary? 14 years. 14 years of turning chaos into structure. Of staying until 2 a.m. to fix fires I didn't even start. Of keeping clients from walking. Of building trust brick by brick, one call, one crisis, one contract at a time. And now some fresh-faced spreadsheet sorcerer tells me I cost too much. I asked him, calmly, who was replacing me. He didn't blink. A new hire. Chase Harlow. Fresh out of Stanford GSB. Really sharp guy. Costs us half as much, and we think he'll bring a modern lens to the role. Chase. Harlow. They were handing over my legacy to a LinkedIn profile with a pulse. I remember standing up, still processing, my palms cold but dry. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I shook Carter's hand. Told him I appreciated the opportunity. He smiled like he just dodged a bullet and said, "You're a class act, Miles. Wish more people left like this." That was Monday. By Wednesday, I'd packed up my office, sent farewell emails, and left the 31st floor of the Halberd Tower with nothing but a box of books, my old Glenlivet bottle, and the one photo I kept framed on my desk, me and the original four, Ellie, Vincent, Lamar, and Jules. The real backbone of our department. What I didn't know at the time was, they wouldn't be staying long either. The first message came 2 days after I left. It was from Ellie Navarro, the kind of person who could juggle 6 clients and a broken printer and still remember your kid's birthday. We'd worked together since 2011. She texted me late Thursday evening. They just had Chase do the Q3 client reviews. It was a disaster. He tried to pitch synergy metrics to Anderson Lee. They hung up on him. I cried in the stairwell. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I didn't expect it, but because I did. Ellie wasn't just a colleague. She was loyalty incarnate. Fierce, brilliant, and criminally underpaid. I always told Carter that people like her were the reason we kept contracts, not because of our shiny decks or buzzwords. But he didn't see people. He saw salaries and dashboards. By the following Monday, Ellie had quit. She didn't tell me. I found out from Vincent, our no-nonsense numbers guy, the kind of man who wore a tie even on Zoom. He called me on my personal line. "Thought you should know," he said. "Ellie's gone. Gave 2 days' notice. Nobody's saying it, but Chase looks like he's drowning." I could hear it in his voice. He was already halfway out the door himself. Then came Lamar, calm, precise Lamar who ran operations with the grace of a surgeon. He emailed me a one-line message. "If you ever start something, I'm in." And finally, Jules. She was the youngest on the team but had the sharpest instincts I'd ever seen. She once negotiated $1 million upsell while drinking gas station coffee at 2 a.m. during a server crash. Her message hit me different. "Miles, they've started asking me to mentor Chase. He thinks client management is about charm. I'm not sticking around to babysit ego and a blazer. I'll give them 2 weeks." By the end of that month, 4 of the 6 key people in my division were gone. No press release. No explanation. Just silent resignations. But it wasn't just people. 2 major clients followed them out the door, Bennett and Cole, and Mizuno Analytics. I'd built both of those relationships personally over the years. Carter and Chase didn't even realize they were at risk until they were already halfway into new contracts, with me. I hadn't even started a company yet. But the company was already starting to form around me. It was strange. I didn't ask anyone to follow. I didn't call in favors. I didn't burn bridges. But I guess when you treat people with respect for years, they remember. And when you replace loyalty with convenience, they notice. I'd like to tell you that Carter reached out. That he called, tried to talk, offered to meet for coffee. But he didn't. Not yet. He still thought he was in control. Still thought this was a minor shakeup. He had no idea the exodus had only just begun. It was a Wednesday morning when the call came. I was sitting at a quiet cafe on West Superior, the kind of place with worn brick walls and hand-poured everything. I'd been sketching out ideas for a consulting firm, just rough outlines, client profiles, structure, nothing real yet. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Chicago area code. I almost let it ring out, but something in my gut told me to answer. Hello? A pause. Then, Miles. It's Carter. I leaned back, slow. Didn't say anything. He continued. His voice was a shade tighter than usual. I just wanted to reach out. We've had a few, unexpected transitions over here. A bit of turbulence. Thought it might be good to touch base. Turbulence. Like someone had spilled coffee on a spreadsheet. Not like half the senior team had walked and 2 legacy clients were now working with someone outside Halberd. You lost Jules last night, I said. He paused again. Yeah. That one stung. She didn't give much reason. She didn't have to. There was a silence on the line. I could almost hear him calculating, trying to find a tone that would make this a strategic conversation, instead of the mess it really was. We're reevaluating some recent leadership decisions, he said. The board's a little shaken. The Chase situation hasn't exactly panned out like we'd hoped. I let that hang. He finally got to the point. We were wondering if you'd consider returning. Maybe not in the same capacity, something more senior. We'd position it as a partnership, a new era. You'd be key to stabilizing things. I didn't laugh. I didn't snap. I just sat there and felt something settle in my chest, calm, solid, final. I'd spent 14 years earning every ounce of trust, every ounce of loyalty, and every dollar they now thought was too expensive. And now that they'd watched it all walk out the door with me, suddenly, I was a partner again. But it was too late. Not out of pride. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. I wasn't going back. Not to rescue the house that fired me, just because it realized I'd been the foundation all along. I looked out the window at the cold Chicago street. The city was alive and moving. So was I. I appreciate the call, I said. But I'm not coming back. He went quiet. You won't even hear the offer? He asked. No, I said. I already have. Then I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to Carter Voss. 2 hours later, I bought the domain name for my company. Rennick & Company. Simple. Sharp. Mine. And this time, I wasn't building it for someone else. I never wanted to start my own company. Let's be clear about that. I was perfectly happy building great things inside someone else's walls, as long as I had a say, a mission, and people I could trust. But Halberd burned that out of me. And when the smoke cleared, all I had left was clarity. Clarity that if I ever wanted to build something real, something that wouldn't be yanked out from under me by some suit chasing quarterly margins, I had to do it myself. So I did. I registered the LLC on a Thursday. No big announcement, no champagne bottle, no motivational post about new chapters. Just a quiet signature, a name, Rennick & Company, and a vision that didn't need to scream. My first 3 emails were to Ellie, Lamar, and Vincent. We're building something. If you're in, we build it right. If you're out, we're still friends. No pressure, no politics. Just purpose. They replied within hours. Ellie was already drafting a list of client targets. Lamar had a project management framework sketched out in a Google document. Vincent sent over a budgeting structure that looked like it came from a Fortune 500 boardroom. We met that weekend in the back of a brewery in Logan Square. Jules joined us too. She'd been freelancing, waiting for something real. I told her I couldn't pay her much yet. She said, "I'm not here for a paycheck. I'm here because I believe you won't waste my time." That hit me harder than any investor pitch ever could. We didn't have office space, so we borrowed a co-working loft above an old jazz bar. We didn't have a website. Jules built one over coffee and a cinnamon roll. We didn't have seed money. We had reputation, and in this town, that's gold. By the second week, Bennett and Cole officially signed. Mizuno Analytics followed 2 days later. These weren't handouts. These were people who said, "We trust you," not the name on the invoice. And just like that, we were in business. Our tagline? We didn't have one. Our mission? Do the work. Do it right. No bullshit. We weren't trying to scale fast or chase funding or become the next hot startup. We just wanted to be excellent, every day, with people we respected. And it worked. Within a month, I was making less money than I had at Halberd, but I slept better. I laughed more. I didn't flinch every time my phone buzzed. I didn't have to pretend to be aligned with decisions I didn't believe in. We were small, scrappy, sharp. But the funny thing about doing things the right way? People start to notice. And that's when the phone started ringing again. This time, not from Carter, but from his clients. I wasn't chasing them. I wasn't cold calling or poaching or sliding into inboxes with exciting new opportunities. That's never been my style. And honestly, I didn't need to. Because when you treat people right, when you actually solve problems instead of selling promises, clients remember. They talk. And in this industry, quiet conversations move faster than press releases ever will. The first to reach out was Henry Lindell from Cordera Logistics. We'd worked together for 7 years. He was the kind of guy who wore the same brown jacket to billion-dollar meetings and never used words he didn't mean. He called me at 6:40 a.m. on a Tuesday. "Miles, you got your own thing now?" "I do." "You taking on new business?" "We are." "You still have Ellie?" "I do." "You're hired." That was it. No pitch deck. No contract review. No 12-person procurement circus. Just trust. 2 days later, I got a call from Donna Pace at Iverton. She didn't even ask for a proposal. Just said, "Halbert's sending kids to strategy meetings with buzzwords and no clue what they're talking about. I want grown-ups in the room again." We onboarded her team within a week. It kept going. Delphi Systems. Gray and Moore. Crossmill Holdings. Clients I had spent years building relationships with, not through charm or dinners, but by showing up when it mattered. Staying late. Taking responsibility. Delivering without excuses. They weren't fleeing Halberd. They were coming home. The thing about trust is that it's not loud. It doesn't need to shout to be heard. It moves in quiet decisions. Quiet exits. Quiet signatures on contracts sent at 11:47 p.m. with a 2-word email. "Let's go." Meanwhile, I heard things from the inside. Word was that Chase had finally cracked under pressure, was put on a development track, which is corporate for, "We're not firing him yet, but we've ordered the cake." Carter had brought in consultants to restructure my old division. They'd split it in 2, renamed it, assigned culture leads, whatever that means. But it didn't help. Because culture isn't a slide deck. It's who picks up the phone at 2 a.m. It's who says, "I've got this," when everything's on fire. And they'd let those people walk. By the end of month 4, Rennick and Company had more business than we could handle. We weren't just surviving. We were selecting. I hired 2 new people, not based on resumes, but referrals from Ellie and Jules. People they trusted. People who didn't need babysitting. People who knew the difference between sounding smart and being smart. And in the background, the industry whispered. They whispered that Halberd had lost its edge. They whispered that Rennick and Company wasn't just a consultancy. It was a refuge for people tired of corporate theater and executive amnesia. And Carter? He was still silent. I'm sure he watched the contracts disappear. I'm sure he read the headlines and the quarterly numbers. But by then, it didn't matter. Because what I had built couldn't be bought back. Not with offers. Not with titles. Not with desperate handshakes. It was already bigger than me. I got one more email from Halberd. It came 6 months to the day after I walked out of their glass tower with a box in my hands and 14 years behind me. The subject line was polite. Professional. Forgettable. Exciting leadership opportunity. Let's talk? I didn't even open it. Not because I was angry. Not because I was above it. But because I didn't need it. I was sitting on the porch of a lake house in northern Michigan, the kind of place I never had time for when I was chasing someone else's deadlines. My dog was asleep next to my chair. My coffee was still warm. The wind smelled like pine and water and silence. Ellie had just landed a national campaign for one of our clients. Her idea, her pitch, her win. Jules had turned down an offer from a tech giant because she said, "They don't get it like we do." Lamar was overseeing 2 new hires, both veterans who had been laid off by firms that couldn't see their value past their age. And Vincent? Vincent just bought a house with a piano room for his wife. We weren't a startup anymore. We were a firm. A philosophy. A quiet rebellion. No awards. No TED Talks. Just work that mattered done by people who respected each other. And me? I was still me. Same coat. Same black coffee. Same belief that doing the right thing isn't flashy, it's sustainable. You want to know the truth? Carter probably still doesn't understand what happened. He thinks he lost a good employee. He didn't. He lost a culture. He lost trust. He lost the kind of loyalty that can't be bought, only earned. He thought he was replacing a number on a spreadsheet. What he did was pull the wrong thread. And the whole damn suit came apart in his hands. I never responded to that email. I didn't delete it either. I keep it. Just like I keep my old Halberd name badge in a drawer somewhere. Not out of nostalgia, but as a reminder. A reminder that dignity, real, earned dignity, has no price tag. And when you walk away with it intact, you win. Every time.